All right, welcome into the Prowling Podcast. Look, y'all. Look, it's been a little bit. Look, it's been a little bit of time, but I got my guy, Jeff Taylor, Bahakel Sports.
Okay, let me just. How you doing, man?
Good, man.
Let me apologize to everybody out there. If you're watching this, I do have on a Titans hat, so my apologies. I forgot we were doing the podcast, and I'm like,
he's showing his allegiances.
Hey, I'm showing my allegiance. You know, Cam Ward, man.
Supposed to keep your cards to the place,
I don't know. When it comes to NFL football and my Titans allegiance, I go hard or go home. Cam Ward, hey. We'll see what happens. Excited about that.
There's going to be a lot of exciting young players coming up.
Agreed.
You know, not even just the Panthers, because the Panthers, they have some exciting, a young crop of talent too. But,
right.
Just the team in general was young to begin with. But then, kind of like you said, Cam Ward, you got Shadur Sanders over there in Cleveland to see what he's going to do, possibly. You never know it. I mean, their situation is quite the situation.
Except for getting speeding tickets.
Hey, he's driving fast. He's moving.
I mean, come on, man.
Moving too fast.
101 miles an hour? Come on, man.
Moving too fast. But the Panthers,
he's not going to move that fast up the depth chart, I can tell you that. But go ahead.
Or on the field.
He may not see the field.
Look. But I will say.
But we digress.
Yeah, we digress. Welcome into the Prowling Podcast. I'm your host, DJ Beal. Got my guy, Jeff Taylor, Bahakel Sports Director. Definitely excited to have you back. It's been a little bit of time, but, the offseason, it slows down a little bit, but there's still a lot going on at the same time. It's like, on one hand, you're kind of just, I talk about this about every year throughout the offseason. You're like waiting for that moment for real football, but at the same time, you kind of get those behind the scenes looks, I think, especially with you guys, with you and Jack, what you guys do, the work y'all do. We get a lot of that behind the scenes, and we love that.
Well, I think that's what makes the NFL so cool.
Yeah.
And I think, you get done with the Super Bowl, and you're looking at the beginning of February. Well, March and April, you're doing free agency.
Mm-hmm.
And you got the draft and the schedule release. Yeah. And, the schedule release has almost become like a national holiday for football fans, if you know what I'm getting at. Yeah. So, and then from there, you're into, mini camps, you're into OTAs, rookie camps. Yeah. So, it isn't all, and I think that's why the NFL is what it is.
Yeah, definitely true. It's interesting. I don't know if the schedule, I've talked to one of your reporters, Jack Taylor, about this, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, and maybe you guys out there, about the schedule release videos, because, of course, Jack wasn't a fan of it. I think some people, I personally still kind of like it. But in terms of the Panthers one specifically, I thought it was interesting. I think I liked last year's a little better than I did like this year's. But, it seems like our guy Xavier Legette is kind of turned into a star with his appearances here and there on these type of things.
You love to hear him talk.
Yeah.
He is a character, and he really has no lens.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and for the schedule releases, the videos, I like them. I think, hey, if you've got a brilliant, PR department and social media department, have fun with it.
Yeah.
Have at it. Because at the end of the day, that's going to draw in the younger crowd. Mm-hmm. It might draw in just a crowd, that normally doesn't like football or something like that. But if you can hook it up with, the social media and TikTok and Instagram and all that, have at it.
Yeah, I know.
And they're fun.
Yeah.
I know the Titans one was hilarious. I can't remember. It was something to do with a medical condition. I can't quite remember it. But it was.
I think the Titans were the one that did the
they were asking
on the street.
People. Yeah, that was
a really good
on Broadway
one.
down in Nashville. Yeah.
That was a really good one, and it's just funny because
at least they can have success there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But it seems like at the same time, especially with Legette, and this kind of goes to some off-field stuff, not bad off-field stuff, but kind of some cool off-field stuff. I know he's been in a couple of music videos here and there, hooking up with Glorilla, which it's funny, I talk with my wife about this. I'm like, if him and Glorilla got together, I don't know what language they would speak, but it would be hilarious. And, of course, that linked up. I think I'm going to take credit here for starting that as a thing, but, on the record. But
And on the flip side of it, though, You had an okay season last year. You had a few drops. Mm-hmm. I think people, maybe the true diehard fan is like, let's concentrate a little more on football.
I could get that.
And let's tone down the entertainment portion.
Yeah.
Because you walk a fine line of, when, and I still go back and I'll give him a hard time till whenever, but, Cam always said, I'm not here to play football, I'm here to entertain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm always curious, too, because I feel like, especially as fans, and I'm curious to hear what you guys out there, the Prowling Patrol. I just made that up. Don't.
I like
that.
That's actually kind of cool.
But
we're gonna write that one down.
I am curious. I would love to see, especially what you guys think out there in terms of these guys' schedules, right? Because I feel like, especially with as many podcasts as athletes end up being on, I mean,
Right.
Paul George has a podcast. He still currently plays in the NBA. There's plenty of current NBA players, along with former NBA players, and other, athletes that have their own shows. And it's kind of become a thing. I know Marlon Humphrey for the Ravens, he has one. Like, a lot of these guys, Cameron Jordan, guys like that, for the Saints, who we know very well, like, it seems like it's becoming more and more of a thing to have these, like, not even necessarily, I don't want to say off-season hobbies, but in-season hobbies.
Right.
I mean, these things continue throughout the season, and it's kind of interesting. But also, I like to see the schedules of these guys to see like how are they fitting these things in.
Make sure you find the fine line of where your priorities are. And then, I mean, I applaud them, and I always say this because Jack and I discuss sometimes, should they make a stance on something on social media? Should they, be doing this? Should they be doing that? You have the platform to do it.
Yeah.
You are superstars, NFL stars, so I get it. Just make sure you keep the priorities straight.
Yeah.
And do what you want to do. Just don't let your football game suffer.
Right. I could agree with that. But yeah, it's very interesting going back to the minicamp aspect of it. As you guys are liking and subscribing to the video if you're on the YouTube version, or you're just giving us a heart over there on the audio platforms, on all major podcasting platforms. But I want to say, you guys got a chance to catch up with some of the players, especially during minicamp, during OTAs, and I love going as a media person because you kind of get to see the guys work, and then you get a chance to catch up with them afterwards and see how they're feeling, and I think like that's that in-depth look that sometimes the media gets that I feel like sometimes, bystanders may not get, especially, this year with kind of the whole audience situation at training camp and stuff like that.
Right, it's going to be more important. Yeah, I mean, we're what we get to do this year, especially with, no fans training camp the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Which, it stinks, but, as we always say, it is what it is. And you got to roll with it. But I think the interesting part was, go back to rookie camp when you had the rookies in. And not only the draft, the ones who were drafted, but the UDFAs and stuff. I think the interesting part with when we went to rookie camp, and I don't know that it's weird to kind of see, but like T-Mac.
Yeah.
I remember T-Mac, like a lot of drills, he didn't have his helmet on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then when we talked to him afterwards, the first thing he always really talked about was getting acclimated to the heat.
Yeah.
Getting acclimated to that heat and the humidity and out west you get that dry heat, you don't get the humidity and stuff. Mm-hmm. And to see some of the guys just come out for the first time kind of in awe, you see it in their eyes. As a matter of fact, Jack Taylor had a chance to talk with T-Mac after one of the rookie minicamp sessions. Take a listen, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm Jack Taylor with Bahakel Sports, here talking with the 8th overall pick of the latest draft and the Carolina Panthers' new receiver, T-Mac. T-Mac, thanks for talking with me.
I appreciate you having me, man.
So just starting off, got a couple weeks of OTA under your belt. What has been sort of the biggest kind of surprise or biggest welcome to the NFL moment you've had so far?
Man, I'm not going to lie to you. My biggest welcome to the NFL moment when I saw Adam Thielen walk in the locker room with his kids, man. I'm like, oh, yeah, this the league for real.
What's it like having his presence, a veteran guy who's been around for so long in the locker room, in this room specifically?
I mean, yeah, it's great. I mean, I think he said this is going to his 13th year. I mean, I'm the rookie. I have no experience at this level. So any wisdom, any knowledge that I can steal from him or other veteran guys that's been in the league, and I'm gonna try to grab as much as possible to for me to be successful in this league.
Talk about this wide receiver room. You've got Hunter Renfrow coming back out of semi-retirement. You've got guys like XL just coming up the last league. It's a really unique group.
Yeah, I mean, I think our receiver room is really good. I don't know what an NFL receiver room looks like, but I know what good receivers look like. And man, I feel like we got every person in our receiver room is good. We got a lot of versatility, a lot of diversity. Everybody can do different things, and I think that's only going to make the job easier for Bryce and as well as the play caller. So I think any of us can go out there and make a play.
You talk about Bryce. We've all heard about y'all's connection, him vying for you in the pre-draft process and you knowing about him from your days in high school. But we've already seen you here on the practice field. You're chopping it up with him on the sideline every chance you get. What's that connection been like so quickly already happening?
I mean, no, it's good. He's a Cali dude, played at a high level like myself. So the chemistry's there. But, anytime I get to talk to him about, what kind of timing he wants, what release he would rather have, I'm going to talk to him because at the end of the day, whatever makes him feel comfortable, it's my job to make him right, so I'm going to try my best to do that.
So, it's he's having fun. And I think the cool thing he asked him too was, and he heard about Adam Thielen and seeing Adam Thielen in the locker room with his kids. That was his first moment where he's like, okay, I'm in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I think that's the interesting part too, talking to a lot of rookies during the mini camp and afterwards. I think that's when it hits them for the first time.
Yeah.
I know they get drafted, and I know they kind of, will work out and stuff like that. But when you get to the facility, you get to Bank of America Stadium, you hit the practice field for the first time. For a lot of these guys, this is when it gets real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's interesting too with T-Mac. He talked about his relationship with Bryce Young, which
right.
And kind of going back, take it full circle. That's one of those answers that you may get in an interview setting later that you might not a fan might not ever even think to know or even think to look into. So it's kind of interesting. They have a little bit of a connection. He knows of him. Bryce. I know one of the bigger questions was like, Bryce kind of vouched for you a little bit. Like,
right.
I think this guy would be good. And it's interesting, too, because when you look at the parallels from last offseason, going into the season, to this offseason, right, especially the way the season started, I don't know if we realized that Bryce was going to have kind of a little bit of drafting power.
Right.
There.
Well, he may not have. He may not have had he not had the kind of the second half of the season that he had. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And the interesting part. And the interesting part is, for when I'm looking at T-Mac and what he brings to the table. I mean, look at what Bryce did last year with who he had.
Yeah.
Now it's a solid core.
Mm-hmm.
But now I think you're throwing another guy into the mix that's really gonna up their passing game even more. So what he had last year and now what he has this year, I'm curious to see how it's all. And Bryce is much more relaxed, but I've also watched him at the OTAs and minicamp. His authority, him talking smack to the defense, getting loud. Which there were a couple times he got loud, and I'm like, wait, here's this young kid who's always been quiet, and he's jawing it up with the defense. Yeah. It shows some significant kind of like growth. Mm-hmm. And I think when the defense now can jaw back, you've earned their respect a little bit.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, you talk about his growth and even going with T-Mac, I feel like the biggest question I'm going to ask you guys out there as well, the biggest question has been like, why would they draft another receiver? Right? Like
why did we go defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, out of all the needs you had, why receiver? But it's just interesting, and this has been my school of thought, and this is my opinion. This does not express anyone else's opinion here, and I'll let you give yours too. But for me, there's two positions where I feel like realistically, and there's probably more than this, but there's definitely two positions on different sides of the ball that just happen to play opposite of each other that you can't have too much of. I think that's corners, and I think that's wide receivers. I think you can never have too many because in the way that the league is,
agreed.
Too much talent on both of those sides is perfect because
you got to have depth.
When you face teams like the Bengals, you need plenty of corners. And now it seems like the Panthers are trying to create even more of a young offense. And it seems like, even last year, it seemed like the youth of this offense was kind of the biggest determining factor. Once, Deontay Johnson was gone.
Right.
And, we got to see some other guys step up. That's when it started to feel like, oh, man, like, you got to see Coker step up. You got to see Leggett step up a little bit more. Like, the pressure became on them. And, their rookies are at least young. There's nothing to lose.
Right. I mean, you're going out and playing football and, having fun to a point. And I think the interesting part, too, is, like, I know a lot of people kind of, like, cringed when they took T-Mac first, especially when you had the defense that you had. But ever since that day, and I've thought about it more and more, I always said that defense wins championships. I don't agree with that anymore. Okay. Because what I'm getting at now is...
When did that change for you?
The Super Bowl.
Okay.
Listen, Kansas City, pretty solid defense.
Yeah.
Pretty strong defense. And Philly waxed them.
Mm-hmm.
Philly absolutely waxed them. And granted, you've got Patrick Mahomes. I get it. Yeah. You've got Travis Kelce, who, whatever. I mean, he didn't have a great game. Mm-hmm. But, their offense took a step back. Mm-hmm. They were in a lot of one-score games last year.
Yeah.
So, they had a solid defense. I mean, we talk about Chris Jones and stuff like that on the defensive side of the ball for the Chiefs. Pretty strong defense, and they got shellacked. Mm-hmm. So now the question is, as you think about the NFL, so much has changed in terms of, I think what you need. You got to put points on the board.
Yeah.
So for those people who kind of cringe, who are like taking T-Mac and stuff like that, no.
I will say this just to push back just a little bit. I think defense does help. I just don't think you need that elite defense to win championships anymore.
Agreed.
I think before you
Agreed.
needed
No, I agree.
a top 5 defense, maybe even top 10 defense. I think now
you go back to the Ravens, the Bears, the Steelers, Vikings throughout the history of the game.
Yeah, and I think now if you're middle of the pack, but you can make those plays, create those turnovers,
right.
Score points on defense, score points on special teams.
Right.
Then I think that's when the defense factors in, because even looking back at the Super Bowl, you're talking about defensive scores,
right.
You're talking about getting after the quarterback, making him uncomfortable. For a team that we've seen time and time again in the Chiefs that can find a way, like out of anything. I mean,
right.
They're down 10 points, they're
right.
down 17 points. It doesn't matter. They can find a way. The smothering aspect of that defense still helps, even though they did have a pretty elite offense.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I think that just it's. You mentioned the not having to, you can't have enough wide receivers, and you said corners. I agree. Like corners, that might be, after, for me, quarterback might be the most important position out there.
Yeah.
I mean, especially with the kind of receivers we have nowadays, and you've got to have, at least 2 corners. You got to be at least two deep.
Yeah.
Sometimes 3. So. We'll see.
Yeah, and I think too, another aspect of that is like I feel like also with defensive linemen, you always got to have a good solid rotation, right? Like you always got to have a good solid rotation because those guys they're bigger guys, they get
right.
tired. You've got to have somebody come in, let them take a couple plays off, and then get back in there and be fresh. And I think with Derrick Brown coming off an injury. He was another guy that you guys talked to too.
Yeah.
Like, he was one of those guys where he was talking about, not only coming back from injury, but it's going to help him to have some more help around him.
Right. Yeah. Jack Taylor talked with him after OTAs. Take a listen.
So first of all, just got to ask, how you feeling?
Feeling good.
Yeah.
Pushing through right now and trying to get back in playing shape. So, that's the biggest thing. But, getting ready to be able to be back with the team for the fall. I'm excited about it.
Getting that extra time to kind of view everything. What is this defense looking like?
Man, it's exciting. I believe we got pieces everywhere. Last year I feel like, we got a bad name for the defense last year. So, it's something we need to come out here and go turn around.
How much do you think that these new guys that are going to be coming in, Bobby Brown and Pat, are going to play a role into what you're able to do?
We're going to have a D-lineman where we're going to get a chance to be able to – we're going to have D-line where we're going to be able to get a chance to rotate guys and be able to play and stay fresh. I'm excited about that.
They've tried to pair, another D lineman with you since you've gotten here, right? And you've switched up different systems. But just talk a little bit about what it would mean for you coming off of last year to be able to have a defensive line by committee.
Man, it's going to be great. I'm excited about it. I come out here every single day. The one thing about these guys is nobody needs the credit, man. We all just worked. And, you couldn't ask for anything more than that. You got a room full of selfless guys that want to go out and work. That's all you can ask for.
When we talk about the defense, obviously you mentioned, there was a bad rap they got last year. But what do you want the fans to know about how ready this defense is going to be?
We got all we need. And if Dan wants to add more pieces, then we'll add it to it. But right now we got all we need, and that's what the focus is, man. We're going to go out here and try to ball this year. And, no doubt about it, I'm excited to get back. I feel like I got some things to prove to people. But, just getting back to playing and being back with this team and being a leader on this team, man, that's what I'm most excited about.
What have you seen from Cam Jackson so far?
Okay, he's a big dude, man, and like he wants to learn, man. He wants to eat up take in all the knowledge and just all the things we say to him, man. It's crazy. Like he doesn't even know yet how to play in the system yet, and I'm sure when they get out there in preseason, it'll be super fast for him. But like, man, when it slows down and he figures it out, it's going to be awesome to see.
Just lastly, Adam Thielen spoke yesterday about there's being a different vibe out here. That being the guys don't want to be the same old Panthers. Have you felt something like that? Have you felt a difference this year compared to last year's?
Yeah. Last year's difficult, but it was one of those things where just being back out here and being around the guys, man. I just want to be around everybody and push them as hard as I can. Whether that's messing with them or whatever it takes. It's just one of those things that I feel like there's culture change coming around here.
So, Derrick, it's just, you forget how big these guys are too.
Yeah, that's true.
I know Jack and I are tiny guys, or whatever, but like you get beside that, you're like, seriously, dude? But, I think he's very excited, and, we'll see how he does speed-wise, endurance-wise. You come off an injury, it takes a while. And I'm starting to realize that. I used to give guys a hard time. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you've twisted an ankle, you've sprained high ankle sprain. Like, come on, man. Like, do it. But then you watch their footwork and you watch what they have to do.
Yeah.
And the amount of pressure they put on, their body and stuff, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is. And I think, like, going back to the point we were making before, I always think, especially not having too much pass rushers too.
Right.
Because, you got to have your elite guys. You want to have your guys you can count on it, whenever you need them. But,
you need those guys on the end.
Yeah.
You need some edge.
Having guys that can get, it reminds me of, like, the Giants in their heyday, it felt like, with Eli and all that.
Right.
When they were running with a NASCAR package of all defensive ends because they had that rotation
speed,
of guys, and it's kind of, I think for Derrick Brown, I think even some of the other moves that were made by Dan Morgan, I think is going to help Derrick Brown too, to ease him back in, because of course you don't want to just throw him back into with an injury the injury that he had,
right.
That cost him his whole season. For a guy who as good as he is, you still want to ease him in a little bit going into the season, and I think hearing him talk, I felt like, he's excited to get back. It's been a long road for him, a long road to recovery. But I think, he's excited to get back and get after quarterbacks again and wreak the havoc that he did. Before
Agreed.
The injury.
Agreed.
Which earned him a payday and all that too. So it's I think I was talking about this before, and I've kind of talked about this around the office. I feel like this defense will still get better. I think I think you can't get worse.
They can't get worse.
Right? So I feel like it has to get better, and I think, the issues of last year, I think as soon as the offense got better, I think the entire core got better. I think everybody tended to get better as the Panthers got better throughout the season last year.
Well, I think the entire, and I hate to say it like that, but, Bryce's play lifted the entire team. Mm-hmm. End of story.
Yeah.
It's just, it's when you get that momentum and you get that kind of glimmer of hope, then I think everybody's like, okay, we got a quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think he answered that question at the end of last year that we have found our quarterback.
Yeah.
And people are talking. I mean, listen, people are talking about him this year, top 10, top 12 quarterback in the league. So he takes that next step, and what this team will look like, when training camp starts up there around end of July or July 22nd, somewhere along in there. We'll see, but I think I think the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I think so.
But we can always say that now.
That's true, and it's interesting because we got another guy that you all talked to, who's trying to win the kicking job.
Yeah, Ryan Fitzgerald.
Right? And he's an undrafted free agent,
Florida State.
And there's a lot of pressure there because Eddie Pinheiro was pretty darn accurate. I think at one point in time he was the most accurate kicker in the league for a little bit of time.
Right.
There, especially considering Justin Tucker was missing everything
at
that time. So it's kind of interesting. I think those are big shoes to fill, and there's always a lot of pressure. And I know he talked about his transition into the NFL with my guy right here, right? I think we're going to get a little bit of double Jeff Taylor.
Yeah, exactly. Take a look.
Today we're joined by Ryan Fitzgerald. He is an undrafted free agent from Florida State, rookie, trying to win the position. Thanks for your time, first of all.
Of course.
So let me ask you this. In terms of you went to minicamp, OTAs, and now rookie minicamp also, what's the journey been like for you?
It's been a lot of fun. I mean, just being out here with all these talented guys and being able to do my thing in front of everybody, it's been really fun.
For myself, I kicked in high school and college, never made it to the pros, but for me, the cool part was kind of the transition going from high school to college and getting to experience that. Assuming you've done that, but now you're taking it to the next level. What's it been like for you, the transition and just the experience as a whole to go from that college atmosphere now to the NFL?
Yeah, I think we had a talented roster at FSU, but then taking another level here at a place like this, it's cool. It's just being around these guys each and every day and, wanting to prove what I can do in front of those guys.
When you think about the pressure, for me, and I'm a little biased, but when we talk about the kicking position and you're trying to win that spot for the Panthers for the 2025 season, for a lot of guys, there's veterans out here, there's rookies who were drafted. For yourself, trying to win the spot, how much pressure is there, and what goes through your mind on a daily basis?
Well, I think it's just a day-to-day thing, one day at a time, and really just sticking to my process, not getting so caught up in the results, just one kick at a time and focusing on the little things in my technique, and that makes the results take care of themselves.
A lot of times I see you off on the side while the other teams are out there doing their stuff. What do you work on? What type of things do you go through when you're kind of over there? The special teams coach is with you, I'm assuming, but what do you do when you're kind of over there, kind of off to the side a little bit?
Yeah, it's I think one word that I've heard a lot is establishing a routine. These vets, specialist-wise, they have a set routine every day. If they're kicking, punting, snapping that day, what they're going to do. And so for me, I think if it's a day that I am kicking, number one is to not overkick.
Right.
Want to keep the leg fresh. But just like I said earlier, keep focusing on those one or two things in my technique that when I do those one or two things, I'm going to make most of my kicks. So.
Got it. One final question for you. Has there been kind of like an aha moment that, okay, now I'm in the NFL? I mean, you've been experiencing all of this, but has there been a moment, whether you walked in the locker room for the first time or out on the practice field or meeting somebody, was there kind of this moment of going, okay, this is now real?
I think every day I realize that. Just going into the building and realizing that this is my 9 to 5, just so blessed and, so grateful for my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for allowing me to do this. And it's just so much fun. And I think whenever you look at it that way, the pressure kind of goes away.
Being a kicker myself back in the day, and high school and college.
Can we put in a couple clips here?
No.
We can't put in a couple clips just to make
my longest was 49.
We need to see the side
my
by
longest
side.
was I kick straight on. Like I'm old school, like Mark Mosley back in the day.
Yeah.
I kick straight on. So never missed an extra point. But hey, I digress. But for the kicking,
that's better than what I could do. Yeah.
But for the kicking job, that's. The interesting part about the kicking job too now is, like you move the extra point back, so it's 33 yards. But there's a lot of, especially because now we don't really have one that's been there and done that. So I think for him, when I watched him the one day, it's really interesting the way they do it because when they were at OTAs and minicamp and stuff, one took the day off, one kicked. One took the day off, one kicked. So not only are you like trying to battle for a job, you don't get as many reps as everybody else.
Yeah.
But the one day he was like 5 of 5 from 50 plus. Mm-hmm. So a great kid. I'm excited for him, and we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I think for the kickers, I think there's a lot of pressure on those guys. They're guys who I feel like don't get a lot of praise, but all the pressure is always on them to win the games, to make the extra points, to the little things.
But I had a coach tell me a long time ago that and I'm telling this to all you listening out there, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it. I want to know where the kicker ranks in terms of like most important position on a football team. Mm-hmm. And another thing too is we got the special teams sometimes cut them some slack. Now, a block punt, I'm not giving that's coaching or whatever. But when it comes to like missing kicks or whatever, a kicker who misses a kick does not cost you a ball game.
Yeah.
End of story. Mm-hmm. Coach told me a long time ago, if your 3 points was going to win us the game, well, the offense should have scored more points. The defense shouldn't have given up what they gave up. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm getting at? Like, it was just a culmination of everything. But unfortunately, you're out there with 2 seconds to go, needing to make this field goal to win and send 80,000 fans home happy or sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a little...
You're the last thing they see. So.
Right. Right. And you're either jumping in your, holder's arms or you're walking off dejected. So, but great kid. Like I said, I think he's right up there and could do some great things.
Yeah. I'm definitely excited going in to this season. I know I've contacted a couple of people in the office. Of course, Gary Bird, I've talked to him a couple of times, and he's kind of what's the floor, what's the ceiling, way too early to talk, but it's just very interesting. Like, I'm always the optimistic one of the group, and I think I said 8. I think I pushed for 8, and I think he pushed for 6. I think if he was telling me, maybe he might even pushed closer to 4. Was what he was thinking, but
for the ceiling or the floor?
For the ceiling, yeah.
4?
I think he said 4 may have been the floor though. I'll give him a little bit of credit.
Listen, I don't think 9 wins is unattainable. Mm-hmm. I don't think that. I don't think the Bucs are going to be the question mark.
Yeah.
How are they going to play? And I've seen people talk about them being Super Bowl contenders. Mm-hmm. that's all going to fall on Baker Mayfield.
I think it depends on how they
start.
The Panthers.
How the Panthers, right?
Because the Panthers have started so slow in the last couple of seasons that even when they've kind of gotten it going, it hasn't amounted to much, except for a little bit of good feelings at the end of the season.
Right.
So I think if they can start faster, and especially the division is part of their problem. Right now.
Agreed.
So.
Yeah. And I think, for them, I think 9 wins. I think the floor, I don't think they lose more than, I don't think they lose, what's the word I'm looking for? I think, I realistically could see them going 10-7 or 9-8.
Okay.
That's where I think they'll be.
Yeah, that'd be quite the improvement. I mean, we
and
saw,
even if you get to 7 or 8,
yeah,
that would be a big step. But I think they are going to be a team where week 14 or 15 or 16, I think they're going to be in the hunt category.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask you this question, and this is for you all out there as well. Let's have a little fun with a percentage point here. But what percentage do you think has the Panthers winning the division?
If I had to put a percentage on it?
Yeah, I'm going to give them a good 60. I'm going to give them above average, better than what they've done. I think it's just really going to depend, especially on them and the Bucs, because, I mean, realistically, I think the Saints are going to struggle.
I agree. I think Atlanta I just don't know about.
Yeah.
I think that I'm going to give them 70.
70, okay.
I think that at worst they finish second in the division.
Okay, I like that. Well, as we wrap up, I mean, we'll be back very, very soon. This was a little bit of a shorter one, but
just to kind of give everybody a little taste.
Yeah,
And we need to do that now, like I said, and it stinks for the fans. I'm sorry, you guys can't be out there for training camp, but stick with us. We'll keep you covered.
Yeah, Bahakel Sports has you covered. Whether it be me just talking about it or my guy right here, he'll be on the field seeing what's going on.
Social media, we'll do all that.
I might try to sneak down there every so often just so I can see.
We can get you in.
See if I can see what's going on.
We can get you in.
But just so I can keep you guys informed as well. But definitely hope you guys enjoyed the show. As always, the Keep Prowling Podcast is on all major podcasting platforms. So be sure to check us out, like us on all of those platforms that you know and that you love. But we'll see you guys on the next episode of the Keep Prowling Podcast.